Okay, so let me now make it full screen. So this is my first slide, that is smart grid conceptual overview. So let's begin with it. So this is the first lecture in this new course on smart grid, and after a long gap, we are again meeting. So it will be interesting to have a series of lectures on this subject of smart grid. Okay, so this first class maybe it will go up to about 45 minutes or so. So with that, let's get started. So I divided my session into four parts. So the four parts are why we need a smart grid, what is a smart grid, and the conceptual model, and some concluding remarks. So let's move forward. Now, a general power system layout consists of generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption. G, T, D, and C. So you have these four sections of a general power system. So let us examine what is there in the generation. So if I slightly magnify this part, so on the side of generation, we have a coal plant, then we have a nuclear plant, or we have a hydro plant at the time. So all these are huge capacity generators. They are generating power and supplying power to the high voltage grid. From there, the power goes down, and then there is a medium-sized power plant can be there. This is at the city level, and there will be industrial power plants, and there will be factories which are loads and all. So this one we call it like a high voltage grid. Then down you see the dotted line. So that is where the transmission grid stops. So on the right, basically it's a one continuous diagram, but for the sake of presenting on the slide, I split it into two parts. So here on the top again, you can see the distribution grid is starting. So it's just a connection of the previous one, and this will be low voltage. And on the left side, you can see a city, and inside the city there are a lot of houses, and the power is distributed there. It could be a city, or it could be on the right side. You can see industrial customers might be there, or a city level generation plant might be there. And if you go down, you can also have a solar farm where solar power is generated. And you can have a wind farm where wind power is generated. And similarly, there could be rural network. So rural network means it is like slightly more spread out compared to urban network. So this is the general structure of the uh, power system layout. Now, obviously, here the number of houses, number of villages shown is very less, but usually the number of houses or number of load points will be in terms of lakhs of load points. Whereas the generators are large capacity, they will be in maybe few hundred generators. And this is the overall structure G, T, D, and C. Generation distribution, sorry, generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption. So now, yeah, any questions? Okay, so I'll move forward. Now, what is the problems or issues in this particular grid? So the problems or issues in this particular grid could be that how to maintain the voltage. So the voltage needs to be maintained. Sometimes when there is a huge demand, the voltage may reduce and it may be a problem. So that is one. Another is how to maintain the frequency of the grid. So in countries, certain countries frequency is rated frequency is 50 hertz, other countries rated frequency 60 hertz. How to maintain constant frequency of your grid? So that means load and generation has to be balanced. Another problem could be with occurring of faults. If there is any electrical fault, how to identify that fault? Another problem could be the variations in the solar power output or the variations in the wind power output. There will be huge variations in this new renewable energy sources. How to accommodate these variations? So that is another problem. So there are several technical problems, and another non-technical problem is the losses. So if there's a huge losses, that means some power theft in your network or that kind of problem, how do you uh, eliminate that? How do you reduce the losses? So these are again some more problems. So there are several problems in the particular infrastructure. I would like to further explain with more examples. So this is uh, the load curve of the city of Delhi. So, so again, you might be knowing about this city, but this is slightly old data. The data is from 2011, quite old data. On the x-axis, each segment is one day. So, for example, this is first one is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like that. See, on the x-axis is the days are there. So there are 6 days shown. And on the y-axis is the total load. So the load, minimum load somewhere it is around 1800 megawatts, and the maximum load goes up to 3200 megawatts. So within a day, there is a huge variation, almost double the load. So for example, if you take the first day, the minimum is somewhere around 1800, and slowly it keeps on increasing in the evening, and by the time it is sunset time, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. like that, the load touches 3200. Then again, slowly people start switching off their appliances, and in the late night, everybody sleeps. Then the power reduces. So again, the same pattern repeats the next day. Again, the same pattern repeats the next day, and so on. Like this, there's a daily pattern. So here the question comes is, if I want to meet this demand, which is highly variable, how much generation capacity is required? So maybe I will just, since there are several people on the call, so maybe I'll just pause and ask for you how much should be the generation capacity to meet this demand? So any answers for this? What you see on the screen is the demand, but how much should be the generation capacity to meet this demand? Anyone can answer. I will repeat the question. Given the load curve to you, where the load varies minimum 1800 to maximum 3200 megawatts, how much generation plant capacity is required to meet this demand?
Sir, it
Anyone would
depends
like to
upon load,
answer this?
sir. Yes.
Is my question clear? So the load is, so the answer I heard is depends upon the load. The load is shown on the screen. The load is not constant. So the minimum load is 1800, maximum load is 3200. So how much generation capacity you want to have?
Sir, we can use multiple
So that you are
generators,
able to
and
meet the
depending
demand.
upon that, we have to. Yes, sir. According to load demand, if it is more, then we can
Okay, so
switch
the
on the
answer
generator which is
I
having a
heard,
capacity.
okay, so somebody else wants to say something?
Sir, considering losses in the generation and consumers receiving end, we can, if the losses are between 10 to 20%, then accordingly we will plan the load. If we have a load of 1.8 uh, 1.8 megawatt,
Okay.
accordingly 10% more or 20% more. So whatever the losses are for that particular line, so considering that we will design our generation capacity.
Okay. So I heard two answers. So one answer says that you should also consider loads, and other answer says that you should also consider losses. So let's say losses I ignore. I feel that there is no losses. Even if there is no losses, in order to meet the maximum demand of 3,200, at least 3,200 uh, amount of installed capacity generation you should be having. But then most of the time, the load is not 3,200. It is only for a short duration, it is that much. So to meet such a load demand, you need to have some generators which are only operated during the peak period. So their utilization will be less. So that is one problem. Anyway, so I'll continue. So those who are not speaking, please mute your mic. So this is the next slide. So there is a typical office building. Okay? So if you look at this office building, in fact, this is the picture which I myself have taken. This is also from a government office in Delhi. So if I slightly zoom this, so you can see there are air conditioning units. So these air conditioning units require some power, okay? And they are all independent air conditioning units, individual air conditioning units. So the first question is, the air conditioning units which are fixed on the windows here, individual ACs will be better, or a combined central AC will be better? Which one will be better?
So we can't hear you.
Here you have individual ACs.
In individual ACs, in the sense,
Can you hear me now?
So shall I answer?
Please, Niyanshi.
Sir, individual will be better because like centralized, like some rooms are not like is not in use, so it like that power is in the wastage form. So using individual ACs will be like more effective as compared to the centralized one, as per my thought.
Okay, so there is one answer. Yeah, there is one answer which says that individual ACs are better because if it is a centralized AC, all the rooms may not be needing the AC there. So then it will be a problem. So we'll think about it later. Now, see, there could be argued that it could also be argued that you can control the AC. Certain rooms, if there is nobody is there, you can control the central AC such that it won't cool that particular room where nobody is there. So such kind of things can be possible. And cost-wise also, if you see, the cost of 100 ACs, each of 1 ton, will be more compared to the cost of one AC, which is 100 tons capacity. So a larger AC will have a lesser cost. So cost-wise, central AC will be better. I'll continue. Now, if you look down, there are a lot of cars being parked here. Now, these cars, right now, they are diesel cars or petrol cars and so on. But in future, if these cars change to electric cars, then each car will have storage capacity, and each car will have at least, if you say each car can store 20 units of kilowatt hours of energy, then if there are 100 cars, then you have 2,000 units of energy available, which can be used in the form of vehicle to grid kind of technology, where the power can go from the cars to the buildings or buildings to the cars and so on. So such kind of things are possible. In the earlier slides, you had seen that in the night time, the demand on the grid is very less. So in the night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., like that, the demand is less. So during that time, we can charge all the vehicles, and then the vehicles will come to the office. And during the working hours, that extra charge which is stored in the cars can be circulated into the building, thereby reducing the power consumption of the building. So this is one kind of application. So let's continue. Now you can ask a question like this. So there is a building is there and there is a city is there. Can the city help the building and can the building help the city in terms of equalizing the demand, thereby avoiding excess investment in the generation capacity? So did you understand the idea what I am trying to say here? How can the building help the city and how can the city help the building? So at the time when city requires a huge amount of power, at the time we can ask the buildings to reduce their consumption, use the charge available in the vehicles. So this is just one example. So how to technologically, how to make it available, the smart grid can do that. Okay, so I'll move forward. So next slide I want to talk about is concept of retail grid. So here, what is happening? You can see there are 10 shops, and all these shops are supplied from a distribution transformer. And the distribution transformer, there is a energy meter, and they are giving the bill. Now the problem is, what happens if there is a power cut? If there is a power cut in the distribution transformer, there is no backup for the shops. And you know, if a shop or any commercial place, if the power is gone, then the customers also go and the business will stop. So in order to avoid that, what a shop owner is doing? Can anybody suggest what a shop owner does to avoid this problem of depending on the distribution transformer?
He will put inverter, UPS.
Okay. So I heard one answer that they can have an inverter and a UPS system and all. In fact, you might have traveled to different places, and somebody also answered in the chat, batteries and generators. Okay, so diesel generators and all this things. So you might have visited any busy shopping area in the city. Each shop owner has their generator. So let's move forward. So this is a scenario 2 where we have something like this. So there is each shop will have its own diesel generator, inverter, and a battery system. Now, when there is a power cut, what happens? The power is gone, and they switch on the generator, and the generator starts burning diesel, and it starts generating power. Now, my question is, now we have backup, but is there any disadvantage with this? Can the situation be improved? How to improve the situation? Can someone answer? How to improve the situation?
So they can have bigger
Reduce the
generators.
number of generators of battery. Yeah. So there is an answer saying that we can have a bigger size generator instead of 10 small generators. Similar to the discussion earlier, instead of having 10 small air conditioning systems, we can have one big generator. Similarly, yeah. So somebody else also rightly answered, we can have a bigger generator. So, but now here, each one is purchasing their own generator. Each one is purchasing their own, what you call the diesel, and operating their own. So that there will be another problem now. See, what we are doing now is like this. So I just go to the scenario number 3. So we have a large generator, and that large generator is supplying power to all the shops. So I hope you can also read the what you call the text on the bottom of the slide. That is, a large single generator system is set up at lesser total cost compared to previous scenario, and the power is distributed by independent network meter circuit. Hello, is somebody speaking something? Yeah. So let's move forward. So is there anything better here? First, my first question is, can somebody do like this? Who will purchase this large generator and who will distribute it? And is it legal or is it illegal? This particular setup, what I am showing on the screen, is it legal or is it illegal? Can anybody answer to that?
That will become a parallel business, sir.
Okay, so this will become like a business. Somebody will be purchasing a large generator, purchasing the fuel, and then they start generating and selling power to the shops. It's a business, somebody saying. But is this legal business or illegal business? Can anybody now set up a generation plant and distribute power like this? So there is one answer saying, I think it is legal. See, what happens is for generating power, selling power is legal. Okay, so selling power is legal, but you have to get a distribution license. So what you are seeing right now is not strictly completely legal, but you have to get some kind of you have to apply it to the regulator, and you have to get a permission from the authorities in order to do this kind of business. Okay, so now you notice that there are 2 meters. Each shop has 2 meters are there, because 1 meter you pay bill to the distribution company, another meter you pay bill to the local generator. Can we avoid this? Can't we have a single meter? Why 2 meters are needed? Okay, so there is one more answer saying it is legal, and in small towns and all things are done like this. So now the question is, can something be done about billing instead of 2 meters for each? Can it be improved? Okay, so let's move forward. So here now we are discussing scenario 4. In the scenario 4, there is single distribution network, but 2 generators are utilizing it. When the transformer is switched off, the generator will switch on, and when the generator is switched on, transformer will switch off, and exclusively they are supplying power. In this case, the meter has to be smart meter, because not only you are recording the energy consumed, you are also recording the timestamp at what time which energy is consumed. So here is where the regular meter will not work, but you need to use a smart meter. Now moving forward, I would like to show one more scenario. That is scenario number 5. So in the scenario number 5, you can see there is electric vehicles are there, solar panels are there, wind power, battery storage, all these new technologies are coming into picture. Now how it will impact the market? See, somebody wants to generate their own solar power and sell. For example, shop 1 wants to sell power to shop 6. So how to enable that selling of power between 2 shops? No longer the seller and buyer are separate. Now everybody can generate power, everybody can sell power, and so on. Rather than single buyer and multiple sellers, now everybody can generate. Now look at shop number 2. Shop number 2 in this diagram, it has only battery storage. So what they can do, they don't generate any power, but they save the power when the price is less and then discharge when the price is high. So that way also they can do a different kind of business. So how to enable this thing? How to make this possible? Because in future people are going to set up rooftop solar PVs. In fact, already they are doing. Electric vehicles are going to come. What will be the prices? What will be the markets behind? So for all these things, the traditional grid cannot be, sufficient. You need to have more newer technologies and also information processing and things like that. So shall I move forward? So that is why we say drivers for smart grid. That means why we need smart grid. So the utilities need loss reduction, peak load management, asset management, renewable integration, and a self-healing. Whereas the customer needs access to power, reliability, quality, consumer enablement, and choice of purchase of power. And finally, the government wants satisfied customers, reduction in emission, and sound utilities financially, and tariff neutral system. These are some of the requirements. And in order to achieve these requirements, definitely smart grid is required. So I just pause for here for a couple of minutes. Any questions so far until here, based on what we discussed? Any questions, please? No questions? Okay, so let me move forward. Now, so far, I have discussed why we need a smart grid, but what exactly is a smart grid? Let's discuss that. Now, smart grid is a layering of infrastructures. So think of having a physical layer at the bottom. Physical layer consists of all the electrical hardware, that is the transmission lines, the generators, the transformers, the motors, the loads, everything, all the electrical engineering hardware systems will be there in the physical layer. On top of that will be the communication layer. On top of that will be the information processing layer. So by layering of this, we can create a smartness. See, what is the role of communication layer? The role of communication layer is to gather information, what is going on in the physical layer, to gather that information and collect that information and provide it to the higher levels. In the information processing layer, the gathered information is monitored and some decisions are made. If at all there is any problem anywhere, some voltage problem or any fault, then in the information processing layer, it will be addressed. So in a traditional grid, only physical layer used to be there. Now we are incorporating sensors and adding communication layer and adding information processing layer. Then a system becomes smart. So if you see, this is also layering, but this is a not smart one. So right now what we are having down, this box and this symbol and this triangle. So all these boxes, symbols on the physical layer are the equipment. Now how these equipments are performing, the information has to be given forward. So one way is that there will be some operator will be there. That operator over the using the phone informs the control room that so-and-so equipment, so-and-so in so-and-so city, so-and-so address, a transformer got failed. So like that, some failure report somebody will send. Like that, across your entire electrical grid, the physical layer changes are being communicated to higher layers. So people can use mobile phone, people can shout, people can use horse, and on the horse they can go and deliver the message. But immediately you can see this is not the best way. So can there be any improvement in this? How the physical layer information can be quickly communicated to the information processing layer? How is it possible? If at all there is any fault, immediately I want to know. Immediately I want to know any voltage issues, any problems in the grid. I want to know immediately. If human intervention is there, it will be slow. So how to get it? How to make the information flow fast?
With sensors.
Okay, so good answer. Yeah, so sensors, somebody answered sensor, somebody is saying automation. and Sushant is saying through various types of communication systems. So if I now go down, that's exactly what we are proposing, that is smartness. In the physical layer, all the equipment that you have, the star mark, you have to keep a sensor. Everywhere you keep a sensor. And using that sensor, you integrate it with the communication. So maybe you can use Wi-Fi, maybe you can use wired connections or some kind of radio signals, different communications. And finally, information can go to the information processing layer. Now there is a computer and there is a human operator. You can do all kinds of software processing of the data, and then you can do that. And the arrows are bidirectional. That means after processing the information, if any decision is taken, that decision can be communicated down to the physical layer. So some control action, some switch is being opened, some generator is being disconnected. Like that, we can do some kind of control action. So here, the human intervention is very minimal. Because of reducing of human intervention, the system becomes fast and it becomes, it will be more efficient. Now here, what are the skills required? So not only the electrical engineering subject, you also require communication subject, you also require information processing subject. So unless you become familiar with all these three, IT, communications, and core power engineering, the smart grid concept will be difficult to understand. As a smart grid concept is a mix of all these three. Either you have to learn all three, or if you are in one particular area, you can work with other people who are in the other areas, and together in the form of a team, you can develop a solution. Not only electrical grid, think of this like, let's say, water supply network. Water supply network, it consists of water pipes, there will be valves, there will be water sensors, all these things. So that is again there in the physical layer. Now, how do you know whether the tank is filled or not? Either a human being should stand there and look at the water level, or you can have a water level sensor and automatically send the information every minute to the server. And the moment the water level reached a certain height, then you can switch off the particular system. So this is like, that is what we call it as smartness. So any doubts up till here, whatever I'm saying, how a system becomes smart? So by incorporating communications and information processing layer with the power systems. So any questions, any observations? I'll just wait for a minute. Okay, so let me move forward. So there is a question here displayed on the screen. Which layer is the biggest contributor of smartness?
Excuse me, sir.
It becomes smart because of physical layer, or because of communication layer, or because of information processing. Yeah, Divyanshi, question.
Sir, can you please ask Sushant Banerjee to turn off his mic, because like your voice is not coming properly. Sushant Banerjee. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So those who are not speaking, so the question is, which layer is the biggest contributor of smartness? Already somebody answered. Physical layer is the contributor of smartness. Okay. Anybody wants to give a different answer? Information processing layer. Okay, so Sharath is saying information processing layer. So because how the thing is becoming smarter, how anything you want to make anything smart, which layer will be? So again, another person is saying information processing. So there is another answer, communication layer. So different people are answering different layers are biggest contributors of smartness. Okay. So in order to understand, let's go and compare it with a uh, human analogy, human beings analogy. Now, what is happening? Okay, so if you compare uh, human beings with the other animals, like chimpanzees or monkeys or something like that. If you compare the physical layer, the muscles are there. So the muscle systems of human beings and other animals, you should say actually the other animals are stronger. I hope you will agree that. So human beings cannot move or run or jump as fast as, let's say, a tiger or a lion or a monkey. So the greatness is not coming because of muscles. Communication network is similar to nervous system. But then again, a lot of animals have equally good nervous system. So the difference is at the brain. The because human beings have larger brain, they are able to process the information, and within the given physical and communication, they are able to do some more things which other animals are not able to do. So, like collaborating with others, attending calls like this, and so on. So, the muscles means in electrical engineering, it is a megawatts. The transformer, the generator, the motor, and so on. Communications is a communications network, the megahertz, and the information processing is megabytes. So now I think you will agree. What is the biggest contributor for smartness? So again, the answer obviously is brain. With the same muscle system, with the same nervous system, if your brain is more evolved, it will be called more smarter. So similarly, now the question is, take a electrical grid. Does the electrical grid have a brain? Does the electrical grid have a nervous system? So like that. Similarly, take traffic network. Okay? So in the traffic, lot of roads are there, junctions are there, and vehicles are moving in the city in the traffic. Now, is there a brain for the traffic? Or is there any nervous system, that is a communication system for? If there is a brain for the traffic, you will be able to analyze the entire traffic within the city and accordingly able to operate the signaling system such that the traffic jams are reduced. So that is a smart transportation system, or ITS, intelligent transportation system. Similarly, water supply network. Okay? So you have physical water supply pipes and valves and things like that. To that, if you add communication and information processing layers, then it will become a smart water supply system. So for any system, just on top of physical layer, you add the other two layers, it becomes smart. So I think this is the final definition of smart grid. So the definition is available from Wikipedia. So I leave this definition on the screen for maybe a minute. I request all of you to slowly read this definition. Today, what we discussed over last few minutes, everything is covered in this particular definition. A smart grid is an electrical grid that uses information communication technologies to gather and act on information about component systems, suppliers, and consumers in an automated fashion to improve the efficiency, reliability, economics, and sustainability of the production and distribution of electricity. So this is basically a definition taken from Wikipedia. So again, at this stage, I would like to pause for a couple of minutes. Any doubts anybody having, please feel free to ask your doubts. So everything is clear. Anybody having any questions or any observations?
Sir, I have a question.
Okay, Vipul has a question. Yeah.
Sir, as we have seen, the communication layer is serving as a bridge between the physical layer and the information processing layer, right? So when the data is obviously getting as a feedback to both the layers, right? So whenever we have a data in information processing layer, same data is getting into the communication layer as a feedback, as
Yeah.
there is a two-way communication. So in this manner, how do we exactly separate the noise from the actual data which we are going to use? Because there might be some data that is not beneficial to us in some manner, and there might be some data which is useful for us. So, do we bifurcate any of the data in this manner?
Okay. Okay. So I heard the question. There was a little bit disturbance in the voice, but then let me repeat the question which I understood. So the question is that which layer is the biggest contributor for the? I'm sorry, that's not the question. The question is how do you differentiate between the data? So a lot of data is coming, but then which data means what? How do you identify which data needs to be processed on? So that is the work of the applications which are there at the top. So in the information processing layer, a lot of applications are running. Different applications will capture the different data that they require. So for example, a temperature monitoring system on a transformer that will continuously monitor the temperature. Whenever temperature is becoming high, it generates an alarm or something so. Whereas there will be a voltage monitoring system, or there will be like unbalanced monitoring system like that. So the whole data goes to the server, but depending on the particular function feature, multiple applications will get the multiple data and do the analysis. Does that answer your question, Vipul?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And any other questions? Uh, yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Any other questions you have right now? Okay, so there was a request to repeat the answer. So I'll just quickly repeat the answer. The question was, how do you differentiate between the data? How to separate the data? And the answer is the applications which are written, the software which is written at the information processing layer, the software will identify which data to act upon, and that data will be taken, and the softwares will be able to do that. Any further questions? Shall I move forward? Okay, so I'll move forward. So this is a little bit of a theory slide. So I don't know how many of you can watch it clearly. You can just pause the video later when you're seeing. Basically, this is the comparison between the today's grid and smart grid. So, so for example, enables active participation by consumers. So in today's grid, consumers are uninformed, non-participative, whereas in the tomorrow's grid, the consumers will be informed, involved, and active consumers demand response and distributed individuals. So like that. So these are some of the characteristics. I will not go into details of each of this. So when you have time, please refer to this. I will be sharing my slides also, and you can refer to this and understand. So I'll move forward. So in fact, this is a particular from energy.gov website. This particular document is available. So like that. Now this is an interesting slide. So smart grid is actually an interdisciplinary area. So what do you mean by interdisciplinary area? So it is not fixed to one particular discipline. Power engineering, definitely it is there, power engineering. and right side information technology, down communication technology, down regulations and policy, economics, and social sciences. So when you want to gain knowledge about smart grids, when you want to learn smart grids, only the electrical power system engineering knowledge is not sufficient. You need to have little bit of understanding about economics, little bit of understanding about communications, information technology, regulations, and in general about society also, how the human psychology also, because smart grid covers all of this. So therefore, those who are interested in building a career in smart grids or doing research in smart grids, be aware that you need to have a diverse set of knowledge in different fields, so that you will be able to develop your things in the smart grid technologies. So I'll move forward. Now, a little bit more detail, I'll go. So maybe what is called a smart grid conceptual model. So I'll skip this slide. Yeah. So now what you're seeing on this screen, this is called NIST, Smart Grid Conceptual Model. So what is NIST Smart Grid Conceptual Model? NIST is National Institutes of Science and Technology. That is a organization based in USA, and they developed what is called a smart grid conceptual model. And this is actually nothing complicated. It is just a simple model, like a graphical representation to understand what is smart grid. Just like you want to visit some place, before visiting to that place, you will check in the Google map what all the places are there, how to reach that area. Like that, this is also kind of map for a smart grid. Now, the items which are there in the second lower part, you already know. Okay, the first one is bulk generation. The next one is transmission. The next one is distribution, and the next one is consumer. So this part you already know. In fact, in any typical electrical engineering course, you will know about generation technologies, you will know about transmission, distribution, and finally you will also know about end user, the motors, applications, and everything. These are the four domains which are the traditional domains. They are connected with a red dotted line, which signifies that the power is flowing between these all particular domains. Above, there is a markets domain here, and there is a operations domain, and there is a services domain. These three domains are new additions to the smart grid. In fact, smart grid used to be there with, like these things used to be there before also, but then with the advent of communication technologies, the entire things have changed. Now, what is the role of, let's say, markets? So what is the role of markets? See, market means that generator can be in one corner of the country and the customer can be in the other corner of the country. This market-based system will be able to identify which generator can sell power to which consumer. So no longer the consumers are tied to a particular single generator. So that is the market's role. What is the role of operations? So operations means it is like a power system control centers where, as we earlier discussed, the three layers, all the information is collected at the operations center, and the operations people will be continuously monitoring the grid, where there is a overloading, where there is a voltage problem, where there is an unbalanced problem, so and so. They will operate it and then give the control action. So that is the operations people. Services means when there is a problem, when you want to replace the old equipment with the new equipment, or install a new transformer, or change the connections, all that kind of activities comes under the services. Some repairs, etc. So this is the conceptual model. Now, what is the benefit of conceptual model is you can identify which area you want to study more. So some people want to study more about markets, or some people may be interested about operations. Some people may be interested about new services, and so on. So now if I move down, this slide also I will skip. I'll come to again conceptual model. So what is there inside the generation? Okay. So if I expand the generation block, so here you can find different types of generation technologies: solar generation, wind generation, categorized under renewable, variable. There's another hydro, biomass, geothermal, pumped storage. These are renewable, but they are non-variable. That means you are able to control them. See, for example, hydro plant, you can control what time to open the gates and what time to generate power and so on. Next, on the right, we have nuclear generation, coal generation, and gas generation. These are non-renewable and they are also non-variable. So different types of generation technology. What are the activities? Controlling, measurement, protection, and recording. So these are. This is the entire expanded view of the generation domain. Now, on the right, markets domain, you can see. On the left, you can see operations domain. And down, you can see the transmission domain. So like this is connected with all. Next, if you go to distribution domain, in the distribution domain, we are having a distribution grid, as you can see, that yellow color grid. There is a storage, there is a solar, there is a distributed generation, capacitor banks, and so on. So this is basically controlling and operating at a distribution level. The next domain is the customer domain. So basically, I showed the overall domains, but now a little bit zoom review. In the customer domain, there are mainly three categories. One is home, other is industrial, and the other is building and commercial. So you can categorize them into these two. In between, there is the electric vehicles and multi-dwelling apartments also, which may not fall under all these. So different ways the power is consumed and the power is stored, power is utilized, power is exchanged between these people. So all the things are possible. A commercial building may have their own generator and so on. So let me move forward. Finally, markets. Okay. So in the markets domain, what we have is the buying and selling. Mainly there will be a website, and generators and loads can log into that website and submit their bids for buying and selling of power. Okay. So this is about that. And finally, operations. So as I mentioned, operations take care of repairs and installation of new equipment, maintenance of equipment, assets recording, and then some kind of supply chain logistics, reporting and statistics. All the things comes under operations. And this one is services. Okay. Home energy management, building energy management, installation, billing, customer management. So these are all comes under services. So again, I go back to the NIST conceptual model. So just the purpose of this model is to show what are the domains that are there, traditional domains and the new domains, and what are the things, components inside the domains. So there are further other, I think I'll stop here for this lecture. In the other lectures, we will talk about some other topics. So let's spend maybe 5-10 more minutes discussing any question and answers. Okay? So any questions you have based on all this?
Sir, do we have any reference material?
Yes,
or
we
any
do.
book on this
Can you
subject?
speak a little louder?
Yeah. Sir, do we have any reference material or any book to
So
which we
there is
can...
a question asked by people. See, yeah. So the question is there any reference material? Is there any books and all? So there are several online resources explaining what is smart grids and all. So some of them, since this is the first lecture in this particular course, I've just given you an overview of what is smart grid. And in this very slide itself down, can you see there is the IEEE smart grid website address. So everywhere on my slides, I have provided links. You can go to that links to get a little bit more details. But then, yes, I will be providing you some more reference material to go through. But as you know, as you might have understood by now, this is not a limited bounded subject. This subject is unlimited subject. New concepts are coming every month, new technologies are coming in the area of smart grids. That is why we are just, there's no fixed. See, for example, if it is a course like electric circuits or electric machines, where you talk about transformers or DC motors or DC machines, the subject is fixed. The DC machine was invented in 1865, so more than 100, 150 years. So since that time, the subject is same. But smart grid concept only came maybe in last 15 to 20 years. Smart grid concept came little off and now as every day some new ideas are coming forward. So therefore this smart grid concept, there cannot be any fixed reference, but I will share some of the references. So any other question?
Hello. Sir, so hello, am I
Yeah,
audible now?
somebody is
Sir,
asking a
so
question. Please
you
go
were
ahead.
referring about
Yes, you are
the
audible.
Delhi grid, right? So the Delhi electrical grid system. So how do they actually do that? So you were asking about
Yes,
how do they manage
yes.
for the variable change in load? So how do they actually do that in the present scenario?
Okay, so that's a good question. See, the question I will once again repeat for the benefit of all. I showed this slide where the load is continuously varying from morning till night. So variation, how they are able to handle this variation. So they are able to handle this variation by using the this operating. There is an operation center will be there. They are continuously monitoring. They keep sensors at all substations and get the continuously monitored data. If they notice that the load is increasing, then they increase the generation. So obviously the overall generation capacity should be there. But then which generator to switch on and which generator to switch off, the decision of committing the generators, that decision has to be made. In fact, beforehand itself, using forecasting technologies, people will already forecast. In the same diagram that you see, looking at the yesterday's data, the next day data can be forecasted because the pattern is more or less same. Similarly, using the 2 days, next day can be forecasted. So if you are able to forecast, then you will also be able to schedule and you can do that. Now, this whole thing is since we are in India, this whole thing is done by Power System Operation Corporation of India. So there is a company called POSOCO. This company also has a website. And if you go to the website of that company, they will be showing. They have an India map there. And right now, what is the consumption? What is the production? Each state, how much is generating? Each state, how much is consuming? So they have a live data available and they're trying to monitor that. So over the course of this, see, we are first lecture is today, but we are going to have more 8 lectures. I will try to bring in more answer to this question, how people are actually doing it through more practical examples. I hope that answers. So
So
I
this
wish to take
is
maybe 2 more questions.
so
Somewhat
what
time.
your answer
Yeah.
was like it was almost a partial implementation of what smart grid is really like. So they're also trying to implement the sensor data and make sense from that data and try to forecast the predictions. So how is the whole smart grid data like? What are the extra things that
Yeah.
the smart grid is going to offer us?
Okay. So again, the question is good. See, when I said that this is a old data, 2011 data and all these things, that time itself they are able to operate it, right? So, but why? No, what is the new thing in this? How we can say it can be brought? So, to answer that, I would like to use this diagram. So the thing is, it's not that there's no information processing layer, there's no communication layer and all. There is there. So just refer to this diagram. So the whatever happening in the physical layer, now in some way or the other, with human intervention, maybe there's a person there making a phone call and then informing the authorities, and then they are taking the control action and then they are telling it back. So this also is possible, but definitely this can be improved. So how to improve it is replace the human intervention with more faster processing thing. And after a while, the data becomes so huge that humans also cannot handle. So I will again, so the question again, I want to use with the analogy of traffic. Now, before the introduction of traffic signals, before the introduction of CCTV cameras, before the introduction of traffic control room, still people used to travel. Still roads being used by people. But as the population increases, as the number of vehicles increase on the road, slowly they started facing a problem. And as and when they face a problem, they went for automation. So it is a continuous process. There's nothing like 0% smart grid and 100% smart grid. Gradually, you will keep on improving different systems. And over a period of time, your percentage of automation will increase. And finally, at the end, everything will be automated. So I hope that again answers your question. But good question. So any other question? So if there are no questions, then I would like to slightly, take when we pause here. I mean, this is just only the starting of the course. This is the first lecture in the course on smart grids. So over a period of, next 8 lectures. So totally 9 lectures. So one is over. So in the over of next 8 lectures, we will try to see a little bit more concepts, and accordingly we'll try to learn. So I will stop recording now, and we will be, just give me a minute.